That looks like a woman to me. I was told this game had 0 female characters. I want my money back. What is this? Okay, so Kang Ying Star. That is clearly a man. This, of course, completely exposes the blatant lies, but many game reviewers, game journalists, claiming that this game has 0 female characters. I've been saying this for over 10 years as a game developer myself, is that game journalists doesn't actually play the games. Of course, I am generalizing, I'm not saying everyone, but I have seen this thing for countless times of my games. I have released over 30 games in my life, and I would say that I have seen hundreds of reviewers not actually playing my game. The thing is that with Wukong is that it basically exposed this thing really well. These lies about having no female character is just so blatantly untrue. But I've seen this in my games where they only play the tutorial and then they yet review the game. That being said, though, they also sometimes give it a good review. I also to put out here, like my latest game that I saw it happening very, very clearly was developed by a Swedish game development company, which I would say is very woke. This company is not hated by the game journalists, so it's not really even about like this political thing. They do this for every game, okay? Not only for games they hate, so to speak, like political agenda. They do it for all games, and I really hope people now can finally learn this lesson that you have to have 0 respect and trust in, you know, the modern game journalist, right? So let's go into it in details here. Hope you have subscribed, press the like button, and I will explain here about my own experience then, right? The racing games, and who's having like, oh, this reviewer clearly didn't play my game. Like this review is nonsense. What is this thing, right? And how again I have literally released woke games. You would probably call them woke at least, right? And they don't play the game either, okay? So it isn't about that they hate particularly this game. It's just that, I guess, again, Wukong is just like the most perfect example of them lying, because their lies are just so stupid, right, in this case. But anyway, let's get into it. Monkey out, monkey in. So in my game then, right, what I really knew that people were lying about my game was because every image that I saw in all these reviews saying that my multiplayer game, I say multiplayer, right, I made a game focused on multiplayer, okay, we're all in the tutorial. So seriously, over 10 reviews of my games were all only showing you tutorial images, where you're only playing as, you know, one race of 3 races in the game, one faction, and obviously you're playing as AI, right, just to learn how the game works, and obviously it's very, very easy, and yeah, like normal people had clearly not played the game, right? It was so obvious that no one that were actually reviewing my game had played it, and it's so boring. And this thing happens all the time. Like it's not even like a uncommon thing whatsoever in the industry. You really have that all the time, right? These people are reviewing my game, a multiplayer focused game, having not played the multiplayer seriously, and it's just so obvious, right? And this happens all the time. That's why I made this video, because no, this is an actual issue. Well, I must die for something, but this is an actual issue in the industry. And I want to really stress on this point, right, that my company was a Swedish game company. We were woke, you know, super woke, right? No, but basically our company wasn't hated by anyone. So it's not to do with game science and Wukong, when the game journalists hate the company and that's why they don't play the game. No. You see with every game company, okay? Now, obviously, a game like Wukong is going to have it more, right? And also, obviously, even more so, they're going to be more blatant with the lies, and that's why they're exposed, right? But I think you have to understand the thing, and I'm sorry I'm breaking record, but is that this has been an issue my whole game career. My whole game career, have I seen this game journalist pretend to play my games, right? They play the game for like an hour, and then they do a review. That's how it actually is. I have seen them make my game a multiplayer game, a game focused on multiplayer, 95%, right? And the reviewers aren't even playing the multiplayer. They're playing the tutorial and they're reviewing the tutorial, right? They haven't even played further in the tutorial. It is crazy. There's been an issue like my whole gaming career. I've done really good for 20 years. It's 20 years, right? The only thing I keep saying is, but what's great with Wukong is that because the lies are so obviously dumb with Wukong, right? Because like I said earlier, if you make a lie and say, oh, this game is, I don't know, not very hard, right? That's kind of subjective. Is it hard or not? It's hard to understand, right? Yeah. But if you say, this game has no female characters, and actually I do have female characters, you just have to get to the next stage in the game, then you're like, well, that's an obvious lie, right? So, I have many examples of it. But I think it's important to understand that this happens to, like, every goddamn company. The game I worked on, that I released a few years ago even had a trans main character. Like seriously, I was the game writer, I was the game creative, and so on, right? And I wrote the game storyline. The main character in that game is trans, born as a man, changed into a woman, and later because of Futanari. So obviously, take it with a grain of salt. I mean, obviously I am the writer, so I guess you could argue it isn't woke because I actually wrote a good trans character. And honestly, as a side note, right, I've been so annoyed for so many years, since I played Deadlock now, for example, people saying that the woke games are bad, whatever. I would say that my game wasn't, maybe some people call it woke, right? Again, the main character is trans, but I wrote it, right? It was like an amazingly good gameplay in that game, and then I wrote the storyline, and I would say people probably would find my game a good game, right? Even though the main character is trans. Now, of course, I think people on the left, particularly far left, right, they probably say that my game isn't woke or progressive or whatever, right? Because it's like a well-written trans character or something, I don't know. But my point is that even if I make a game, of course, with a trans main character, which I actually did, right? And even in that sense, the journalists won't play the game, right? You know, the journalists still play the game. So it's just kind of funny because they're obviously not gonna play the games they hate, right? Like Wukong, whatever. Obviously not. But they're also not gonna play even the games they should like, right? You know, because they're all fake journalists. They're all fake game fans, right? And I think that it's really sad in a way because I'll be thinking about the video that I will make in the future. So hope you guys subscribe, and so on. And the video I'm planning to make basically is like how game journalists used to be badass, right? When I was a kid, I loved game journalists. Game journalists wasn't my dream job. My dream was to, of course, make games because it's funny to make your own game than just play other games. But still, though, game journalists used to be like a dream job, right? And there's a lot of layers to it. And now instead, game journalists turn into the most, I don't know, lamest, pathetic losers ever, right? And I think it's honestly goes way deeper into it than just being they are very, I don't know, progressive or something. Because I always come back to this thing, right? That I think that the game developers, like I said last year in my soulless game development video, I think that game developers now are way worse than they used to be. A lot of people say, oh, you're just being like old man yelling at cloud, right? But I don't agree with that, because it's like, for example, here is Poison, right? I love Poison. She's my girl, she's my waifu, right? I still with the waifu, and obviously she got extra equipment. Everyone knows that, or do they? That's my point, right? You know, game developers today are just, in general, not as good as used to be, right? When I was starting in the game industry, like 20 years ago, right? Started making games. Every game developer that I knew back in the days, right? When I was young and so on, making video games, everyone knew who Poison was. He was the first trans video game character. This is the first trans character in gaming. Everyone knew that. Just an iconic character, right? And everyone, of course, had read her and stuff. But let's be honest, everyone knew who she was, right? If I show an image of Poison here, right, to a 25-year-old game developer today, 9 out of 10 of them does not Poison is. And you can say that, oh, whatever, trans, no, but this is the first trans character. She was iconic. The whole that Capcom said, there is no men in the... Capcom was like, no, there's no men attacking women in this game. They're all men, right? The whole backstory of Poison was iconic, right? Because when I was a kid reading that story, how Capcom basically was like, no, there's no women in this game. It was super funny, right? We all laughed at it. It was so silly. So everyone knew the storyline. It was like similar story, right? Is a whole that everyone thought that Link's name was Zelda, right? That's why I bought this t-shirt a few years ago, because I thought it was hilarious, right? I can still be your princess. I was like, oh, this is funny, right? And that's the thing there. I feel that the game developers today don't even get this joke, right? Because it's like, what do you mean, Zelda, princess, Breath of the Wild, drug, bro? So it is a big issue, right? Generally in the game industry. But I think it comes back to the whole game journalists as well, right? Not only are game journalists perhaps failed game developers, but usually they are failed, I don't know, writers, activists, whatever, right? They face something else. And it's just like, to me, it has become this ridiculous thing where they don't even want to play the games, right? And I keep saying it, I know it's a video, but I think it's very important, honestly, to understand this point, right? That this is not just a case where they are not playing this game about Wukong because they hate it because it's not woke or whatever. No. They are not playing my game either. When I have a goddamn trans main character. And I mean literally, they're not playing the game either, okay? They're not playing Dustborn either, you know? They're not playing any of these Vogue games and so on either. They just don't play the games. It's become absolutely the worst people, right? Have become game journalists today. So they have no interest in actually playing video games. Just like how I look at a lot of developers today not being as talented. And the reason why, of course, I spent it last year in my video about soulless game developers is because, you know, today game development is just whatever, right? People think it's cool. It used to be only for the hardcore super nerds, and now everyone wants to do it because games are just popular or whatever, right? That of course attracts a lot of nobodies that shouldn't be in game development. They're all terrible. And we see definitely with Dustborn or whatever, right? But not only Dustborn is a Vogue terrible game, but it also attracts terrible game developers, you know? I looked at one of the Dustborn, the game designer, her resume, and already in her resume, she was saying how she was copying, what was it? Life is Strange, you know? She was just copying Life is Strange. Why would you do it for? You're a terrible game designer. I'm probably saying that. When I was a kid, when I started making my own games or whatever, right? You know what I copied? No, I'm kidding. What I didn't copy? Donkey Kong Country. I'm not kidding, guys. I'm not playing this gamer. But seriously, when I was a kid, one of my favorite games was Donkey Kong Country, right? But I didn't copy that game. Instead, I used to envision how would I make my own levels in that game. So I actually I was sitting down at school and I was drawing like my own Donkey Kong Country stages, right? Like imagining this how I make my own level design, right? And then I was like 9 or 10 or so, I started to develop my own, you know, custom maps, right? For Here's a Mathematic 2. So I started. So I made my own like campaign and I customized those maps and I wrote these like scripts and code to have different, you know, sort of artifacts and events happen and so on, right? That was me as a 9-year-old. And I see this new so-called developer, game designer for Dustborn. She's proud that what she did is just copying Life is Strange, okay? Just copying it. Oh, I'm doing Unreal, I'm copying Strange. That's terrible, right? You can be inspired by Life is Strange if that's a game. It's a pretty good game. If you like it, it's fine by me. But I would never hire a person that just copy something. I want to hire a game designer, right? That's like, oh, I like Life is Strange, so I made my own, I guess, like visual novel game. You know what I mean? I made my own one. I made this room here is inspired by this. No, how fun is it to copy how it looks exactly? I'm not kidding. This is what her resume says this thing. Yeah, common issue, right? That we have all these like wannabe designers and so on that are all terrible, they're not creative, they shouldn't be in the industry, right? And I know I sound like an angry old man, whatever, but that's how it is. And the game journalists are even worse, honestly, right? You know, same thing there. Game journalists used to be these badass, super cool guys, and now instead it's like game journalists are the people that couldn't get a jobs at, you know, a normal magazine, right? They are the people that couldn't get a new game. I knew something would be here in the goddamn ice tape. Finally, I knew there would be something here in this frozen place. Okay, anyway, my point is that game journalists, right? They are even worse than soulless game developers. These are people that didn't want to be journalists for games. They want to write books, or they want to be writers, or even if they want to be an actual journalist, they didn't want to be games. They want to be for fintech, you know. They want to be for war, political stuff, you know. They want to interview Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris or whatever. They hate video games. So they are even less likely to actually play the game. I'm saying this thing for a decade at least. The game journalist doesn't actually play the games. And like I said earlier, even not non-Vogue, so to speak, even my game where I make a freaking trans main character, they don't even play that games. They don't even play Vogue games, okay? Game journalists are so fake, they're so terrible this year, current year, they don't even play the Vogue games. Because again, only the worst persons basically are game journalists. It's become the most bottom tier journalist people that actually doesn't want to do, you know, games at all. Like I said, they want to interview Hillary Clinton or whatever, yeah. So in conclusion, right, these people actually view video games so little, they don't even play them, right? I could never see myself doing that. You know, I could never see me review anything without actually having experienced it fully. I mean, of course, it's one thing if you play like World of Warcraft, you know, like I haven't done all the mythic raid dubbing set or something. But it's like, if you play especially a single player game like Wukong, just beat the game and then review it, right? But like I said earlier, even if you give them a Vogue game, they won't play it either. It's kind of funny, but they won't, right? I mean, how many of the reviewers that have given Dustborn a high review to actually beat Dustborn? I would honestly guess 0%, yeah. Because no one actually want to play that game, right? Including themselves. And it's just so obvious that they hate the video games, right? Now, so the whole thing that they are like Vogue or whatever, or like progressive, that to me is more like a, how I say it? That's more I wouldn't say it's random, but it's doesn't really, that's not the actual problem. That probably just happens because they don't want, you know, the people that want to work in this kind of industry, in like activism, whatever, they tend to be left, and that's what tends to be left. But I can see the same thing happening with some like far right-wing people who also hate video games. They also probably just fake the review, right? I don't see there being a difference in them. There we go. But so it really isn't about that. It isn't about them actually being left-leaning. It's more about the hatred for video games, right? Or not taking it seriously. Not actually want to have a job. That's why I keep saying they remind me of these game developers who actually doesn't want to be game developers. So it is like a weird thing where we end up with these people that really shouldn't be in the industry. That's been my whole life, you know. Like I keep saying, Wukong, it just sticks out because the reviews are so incredibly openly lying, right? And that's why I said earlier when when I first read those terrible reviews, that I was like, oh, I'm 99% sure this person here just didn't play the game. Like, it's just, yeah, it's like, no. I don't buy it for a second. There's no female characters. No, I don't buy it. This is just her, like, playing the game for an hour and then deciding to go on this, like, really weird lies about it. Because, I mean, think about it. She would have gotten away with it. If anything, as I did lastly, isn't Screen Rant and the other reviewers are so terrible at taking this game for like lack of this and that, right? Isn't that incredibly how talented they are? They can't even lie correctly, but they can't even lie correctly. If you want to give the game like a 4 out of 10 or whatever, right? 5 out of 10 like a bad review score, but at least pretend that's something else.